evening. Welcome to Investigator News, and we are doing a special report on Ukraine. And I want to say I'm happy that we have Investigator News 2 back. And so we'll be having a link for them as well as Investigator News Network and, of course, Facebook. Before we get going too far, there was a shooting. They say the shooter is down. City Council Jen Fowler telling us now that the shooter is dead. Uh, Oklahoma shooter, the situation happened around 5 p.m. this evening at the Natalie Building. That is St. Francis Health System Complex, just 3/10 of a mile or so down from the hospital itself. We don't know exactly which office the shooter was targeting at the time, but uh, Counselor Jamie Fowler telling us from the district that there are confirmed dead, including the shooter who took his own life. Tulsa police immediately responded to the scene. Tulsa fire medics, EMSA, OHP, your federal partners, as well as the FBI, also on the scene to assist wherever they can. And they're very anxious and scary moments for the people who do have family members in the building. The police are asking people to stay away from the complex, stay away from the area near 64th and Yale. They have a they have set up a family reunification center that is at Memorial High School. So yes, another shooting, another, and this time at Tulsa, and a medical complex. So, and he killed himself, and I could already see that this guy had probably some issues. So another thing is U.S. sent rockets, um, and they basically, um, boy, this is kind of how some of the countries over there feel. If you're the United States, you could throw weapons at the problem. And that's what Joe Biden is doing, according to people in Ukraine. He's flooding the country with all kinds of weapons. And guess how much they're worth? More than $9 billion. This includes rockets, anti tank missiles, radar guns, ammunitions. Uh, his new package includes controversial weapons, the HIMARS, multiple rocket launch system, and a mobile rocket unit. It can fire multiple rounds at the same time. Now, why is this weapon controversial? Because its range, HIMARS, can hit targets 80 kilometers away. That's much more than anything Ukraine currently uses. Right now, the most potent rocket is the M777 howitzer. It tops around 25 kilometers, but the higher mass can travel more than twice the distance, which means it can target and hit targets behind Russian lines. You could call it a game changer, like the Stinger missiles in Afghanistan or the F-14 Tomcat in Iraq. These rockets could change the tide in Donbass. I tell you, right now in Ukraine, forces are finding it hard to break out. They're under heavy Russian shelling. Their rockets do not have the range to strike Russian targets. In simple words, Ukrainians are bogged down and military is bogged down. Not only can it hit enemy targets, it can do so away from Russia range. So it's good news for Ukraine, not so much for Russia and the Kremlin. The Kremlin is now warned against sending advanced missiles to Ukraine. They called it senseless and risky of dumping weapons. It's not just the words of Russia flexing its muscles. Around 1,000 Russian soldiers are holding nuclear drill near Moscow at this moment. They're practicing with 100 vehicles, including the Yars intercontinental ballistic missile launchers. And clearly, Russia was serious about the warnings. So did Biden, and he went ahead with the rocket shipment. In the first place, he clarified his position and opted for the New York Times. Here's what the U.S. president wrote, and I'm quoting. We have moved quickly to send Ukraine a significant amount of weaponry and ammunition so it can fight on the battlefield and be the strongest possible position and at the negotiating table. And that's why I've decided that we will provide Ukrainians with advanced rocket systems. Interesting logic. Um, Biden wants diplomacy and succeed, and he wants to end the Ukraine war through talks. And so, what does he do? He sends more lethal rockets to Ukraine. Sounds a bit counterproductive, and it does to Putin also. And it does not well in America. Remember, they dropped the nuclear bombs to make Japan surrender quickly. The same logic here, except advanced rockets are not nuclear bombs. They may give Ukraine a temporary edge, but Russia has enough weapons to level the advantage, which makes you wonder what exactly Biden's end game is. And his defense is now, his officials were talking about weakening Russia, and he was accused of extending the war to give Putin a bloody nose. So on Tuesday, Biden hit back with the same opt. He clarified the position on the war and has said that we're not encouraging or you're enabling Ukraine to strike beyond its borders. We do not want to prolong the war, just inflict pain on Russia. This is the U.S. president has written, and there's another interesting bit. As much as I disagree with Mr. Putin, and I find his actions in some points an outrage, but I find what the United States is now doing a bigger outrage, and maybe Putin, this will cause Putin to strike bigger. So, two clarifications by quite a few of the colonels and generals on both sides that they're not wanting to extend the war. He's not seeking to remove Putin from power, and those are important clarifications. But the question is, will Putin buy it? And chances are he won't. And these rockets are very risky. It's a roll of the dice, and Biden is hoping the battleground edge will force Russia to back off, retreat, sue for peace, or at least begin talks. And Putin will back out and see that Ukraine might be the victor. Oh, good grief. We'll see if this escalation, because this is not just the U.S. and other Western countries that are sending more weapons. Germany, in the latest, they've announced that the air defense system for Ukraine, and it's very good progress for helmets. According to the Chancellor Scholz, this is just a start. He wants a complete overhaul of German defense and his ultimate goal to make Germany the most powerful European army in NATO. What we have achieved is a quantum leap, and it has consequences. The German army will become the biggest conventional European army in NATO. We will work to continue improving our security architecture, for example, when it comes to cybersecurity. So you have a lot of big announcements from Germany, and it's militarizing and wants to be as strong as America. And it's sending advanced rocket systems, but none was a surprise. In fact, Ukraine had been asking for those weapons since March. Until now, Biden opposed to it and thought the rockets would be an escalation. And for once, he's right, because now Putin has vowed there will be an escalation. And yes, give you a crane of maybe a temporary edge, but at what cost? What if Russia responds with bigger firepower? And this is all politics. And about solving the problem, this isn't even close. Putin was asking for talks not even a week ago, and they were turned down by the U.S. And then it was turned down by NATO, and then Ukraine followed. Biden has nothing to lose in this escalation. It's not his country. and only Ukraine faces the bullets and the bombs. It seems like Biden and his administration is ready for war, pushing Putin to strike. It's sad for the Ukrainian people and civilians. This was their claim. The people were talking. And what they claim is that the US president wants World War III. So now the Ukrainian people are looking at Biden as wanting World War III. That's just wow. This is I don't know. I haven't had time to sit and think on this, but earlier today I seen a post by Putin, and he said he sent his military out to practice nuclear drills, and it sounds like this is what Biden wants. So Biden is pushing Putin to a nuclear war. No, no, man, this is sad. I agree with the Ukrainian people. This is sad that it's not up to Ukraine and Zelensky. Biden and NATO has stepped in. They took over, and now they're telling Ukraine how to run their war. Oh no, that just don't settle right with me, one bit. It just don't settle right with me. And if you're just getting in here, there was a shooting at 5 o'clock today in Tulsa, and the shooter is dead, and I believe there's 3 people that are dead. So tonight's show is kind of left off from earlier today. Um, so um, we're on kind of part 4, and today, this morning and tonight's show is kind of one little package together before I move on to stuff that's going on in Ukraine, and have notes from a very important person set for tomorrow morning. So actually, before I show you uh, or I tell you about what's going on in Ukraine at this time. Now, we're talking back in 2008 to 2000, basically 16, that we were sending lots of money, millions, over to Ukraine. And so before I started bringing up money laundering and kind of how it goes about from one bank to another. So I'm going to give you a little bit of money laundering 101, and that it's illegal and it can be prosecuted. So you have to understand of how money laundering works. Let's say you are a really bad guy and you got millions, and you got all this money, and what are you going to do with it? You can't spend it. You can't. You can't spend it. You can't put it in the bank. And why? Because the FBI, the IRS, Interpol, the Treasury are all looking at who's transferring money and where that money came from. So you just can't put it into a regular bank. A regular bank is going to alert all these people that you just made an unusually large deposit, or you're buying stuff. So instead, you have to take it to a dirty bank, and so what that is it's usually in a place like Lativa or Cyprus. Now you go to that bank, and they make you a loan. Let's say you have $1 million to what you want cleared or cleaned. So you go to the bank and you say, I'm starting a new company. No, it doesn't really have anything in it. And I explained this like a shell company this morning. You don't have nothing, no gas, there's nothing in it. Just a lady in a room with a telephone. And the shell company, they say that it's a fantastic idea, and there's a lot of winking going on in between the dirty bank and this guy that has $1 million. So he gets out like a $10 million loan, and he has the collateral of what he's stolen. And so he's there to make those payments. So, and he's able to make the payments. So the bank gives him a loan, and you're going to make dirty payments in your dirty dollars. So there are more dirty dollars left of that $1 million. Well, now you have to default because you're out of money, and you say, "Oh, the Shell gas station didn't work, and I don't want to do it no more." So the money left, you can't do anything with, so you default on the loan. Now the dirty bank, they basically can't return your entire $1 million, but what they can do is they're going to have to penalize you about 100,000. The bank will keep that because it's a real hassle doing business, and for you to um, come in one day, make this loan, and then come back and default on the loan. So basically, this guy's going to take um, the $900,000. The bank takes its fees for their dirty work, and then you basically have clean money. So this is it was going on in Ukraine. And so you can get whatever you want with it. You can get a boat, you can get a house or a mansion or mini boats, or I don't know, go out and get a Maserati, I guess. Um, so um, the real patriot, maybe you can finance a war, or if you're Congress, you can go out and just be as dirty as you want. I'm just teasing. But, you know, um, they have to do this because the IRS is going to come looking. And if it's not the IRS and you try it in other countries, you're going to end up with Interpol. So the IRS immediately um, basically um, uh, basically the gives the go ahead for you. You know, there's no issue with it. You defaulted on a loan, so now your money's clean. So the IRS turns around and walks away, and there you have it. You got dirty money, and now it's clean. Um, so we got Uncle Sam, and they're basically, we're paying our taxes into this, and then they go and they get this money either through USAID or a grant, or we give the country money, or like we just did, what was it, 9 billion in weapons, and that comes out of us. And did we approve of this new 9 million or 9 billion in weapons? I didn't hear nothing about it. They just do it, and I don't even think he ran it through Congress. So now he's going to be, unless they run it through tomorrow. But um, this is now we have this $9 million. Or is there actually military equipment going to be sent? Do we know, or is it going to be used for something else? And so basically, getting back to like this morning, we sent over that $1.8 billion, and it was to a private bank in Ukraine. Well, uh, so it could possibly happen there. What I mean is, we put it in their bank, they take it to Cyprus, Cyprus cleans it, and then it goes on from there. Now, the the news is that since then, Cyprus has got a bunch of new branches. Um, they have a branch not only in Odessa, but in Mariupol. They have it over in Kiev. But they have, guess what? They have 42 offshore connections now. And the good news, well, I don't know if it's good news. Um, guess who owns it? Guess who owns all these banks? Now, remember from this morning me talking? Okay, so this morning, um, he's got connections, and he's got 42 offshore companies and places now, um, like Panama and other of the islands. Well, it's none other than Molesky. Remember the guy with the the um, the chainsaws? Yeah, him. Yeah, he's got all kinds of money now. All around the world, they wanted to do business like Cyprus and provide a bank. And I don't know, I don't know why they didn't want to do it back then, but Ukraine did it in Cyprus. Now this Malinsky has got his own bank, his own dirty bank. So it makes it really easy. If it goes into Ukraine, then automatically Ukraine is flipped it over to this chainsaw guy, Malinsky. And so it's been a success. Now, how much money needed? Um, um, well, it seems like they needed that 1.8 million, which is crazy, because that's the same amount of money that we lost. So somehow they wanted close to 2016. They needed a 1.8 billion. Well, that's the same amount of money we've lost before. So they poured in um, the one that 1.8 billion, and they had a default on the rest of it, of course. So what I mean by they defaulted on it, um, it was written in somewhere in the documents that they got caught trying to move it to the dirty bank, and so they found out that they had defaulted on it, and of course the loan, and their companies, all 42 of them defaulted. So, and why? Because they all got, I think they were all getting caught. So, for sure, this 1.8 that he needed, what we see that he might have spent it on was tanks. Because what we seen was right after this loan went through, we seen the Ukraine army with a bunch of tanks, new tanks. So they got their tanks and they got a little bit of money. The 1.8 isn't being talked about. That's not even including the 8 million that disappeared. Um, so this is one heck of a little nest egg they're getting. And according to what the State Department had, um, from 2008 to 2016, they received approximately $100 billion. So I want to know why they can't buy their own weapons, you know. And when I was looking to this, I started following this muddy trail, and there's something wrong. Do you think the prosecutor was in on this scam? The highest levels, he didn't know about this. But until the air cleared, he said, and when the Democrats and the U.S. senators and congressmen left, he said then he was able to surround himself with people that would investigate what was going on. So when he started investigating this is when Biden said he's got to go. He's got to be fired. Well, it wasn't before they slipped another 1 million to Ukraine and the Ukrainian banks, and no one knows why. And it was on the sheet, their spreadsheets that said they received this money, and it seems like they were getting quite a bit of money over the years. And so um, the highest levels um, that was that this prosecutor was dealing with was a lot of very rich oligarchs. And so when Trump called him, he said, "You're surrounding yourself with some of the same people." Uh, and so what we found out was when we looked into it, And even some of the investigators and like Rudy Giuliani looked into it. The President Zelensky was a comedian before he was elected, and we all know this. The show was broadcast on the 1+1 TV channel. Oh yeah. So guess who owns it? Guess who owns it? Yeah, Mr. Chainsaw. Yeah. And he was considered Zelensky's main backer during his campaign. Now, after the evidence began to come out, the shadiness of Pravda Bank, government immediately nationalized it into telling how much dirty money Kolomoisky lost when that happened. I can't wait to tell you the story, but guess who's trying to lobby for president in Zelensky's place to lift the the nationalization, and run a column? Um, Guess who? Oh, I think you already know. Malinsky, yeah. He wants to get Zelensky out, and Komolowski wants to take that position. Now, it was offered to him that he could have, and he was a governor of one of them states that Putin is taken. And so President Trump, referring to any question as to why investigating Hunter Biden. The important is that U.S. citizens could be linked to this entire operation. But see, we have to remember, Hunter Biden had nothing to do. This is what I want to make sure. He had nothing to do with the money going into the bank and it going to the dirty bank. So we know. And so all we really had to do was follow the money. And I'm begging Congress and Senate to at least look into this. I think this is what's taking Durham so long. I see Grassy jumps on this. I've seen Johnson jump on this, and it's not easy laundering money. But they have designed it to be invisible, and it's not exactly totally impossible because of the certain documents that have been found. And starting with uh, um, a document from the Office for Prevention of Laundering of Proceeds derived from criminal activity and the prosecutor's office, and from the Republic of Latvia. So it was sent to the colleagues at the Financial Investigation Crime Unit in Ukraine. This is one of those anti-corruption things that Zelensky set up. And there was at least four that were put in place. One he did on his own, and the other three Trump helped him get together to get corruption out of the country. At this time, Trump really didn't want to give him any money because what if it was laundered and Zelensky didn't even know about it? And so um, the wire transfers from Burisma, uh, they heard that Hunter Biden was involved in a corrupt affair. They found some suspicious activity, and the Latvian authorities say that Burisma Holding Limited transferred money to director Hunter Biden and that they were involved. And this came out not even, let's see, it was not this last February, but the February before. So they just recently caught him. And so they limited his account, all of his accounts. And they also were looking at the private bank known to the Laffy and Financial Investigation Unit. And it says from July 12th until July 2015, the total of these different balances received from WireLogic Technology as the payment loan agreements. Like they were saying that the one that defaulted on familiar transferred from Burisma and the private account in Cyprus, uh, it was basically paid out to the accounts for Devin Archer and Hunter Biden. And so that is what locked that $23 million that was frozen back in 2014. This is a carbon copy of money laundering. And basically, when the company in London receiving the funds found out it was Hunter Biden, they immediately got a hold of Joe Biden. And get this, he whisked his son off to China. And like he was in a low place where no one would really know where he was. And basically it was set for Devin Archer to take the whole blame for all of it. So at one point, there's certain money, if it confused you, there's certain money that was going into Ukraine's accounts. Remember the one with the military and um, military forces, and grants and others was going in that. But then they found out, in order for them to, once they got it all set up with Cyprus, and uh, Kolomoisky had gotten a lot of different banks, they decided they would throw it through Burisma accounts straight to the cleaner banks. So that's what basically happened. So we get the feeling that when this prosecutor Shokin had started looking into this, there is an email that looks like Shokin maybe have tried to get a hold of Trump, but it was a brief one, and they never did find anything that they had done back and forth after that. And it sounded like Trump wasn't available and didn't talk to him. So I think this is why the prosecutor was ready to shut down Burisma. But then we heard, of course, Biden say fire him. So the Ukrainian media debunking that the false claim that Shokin asked Ukrainian court authorities the seizing of Burisma assets on February 2nd. And this was back in 2016. After that investigation happened, that's when the documents that implicated Hunter Biden was transmitted to Ukraine. And the next order of business was Shokin. And so they basically protected Biden. And of course, Shokin was fired. And then when it all fell down, they went after Shokin for having inside information. So Archer, so they interrogated Biden Jr. and Archer, and what happened next was basically Obama was fine with it. He didn't see anything about the corruption. He said he had a phone call with Zelensky maybe once. He didn't know anything. Now, this is always confusing to me because the entire CrowdStrike story, and now remember CrowdStrike, and I mentioned the cyber security firm CrowdStrike. Now, this is always confusing to me because the story revolves about a conspiracy theory. And the Democrats and the media have pounced this to discredit the Trump teams. And then, they still blame them today for this. They claim that it was a setup and that rich Republicans were trying to set up Hunter Biden and Devin Archer with dirty money. Well, it doesn't work that way when Pelosi was the one that was spouting this. And how can you do that if you have got money coming from our Defense Department, our State Department, the Department of Justice, the Pentagon, and you have tanks coming from places in the United States? So What had happened was they tried to flip it around. Oh boy, don't you love these Democrats? They tried to flip it around and say it said Russia did it. Russia's the one that was trying to set up Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and Burisma, the gas company, so they could steal the gas. And they were sending them and trying to set them up with dirty money. Now, the only one, um, base, basically, I got this is kind of funny, but not. Russia's Putin said this was a bunch of hogwash. And he said he heard it differently. He seen what they were doing. He seen what they were doing to his Russian people. He wasn't concerned in their money laundering as much as he was to help his people in Donbass and Mariupol and a few other countries right there where Ukraine was forcing them, if they didn't speak Ukraine, then they would punish, imprison, or they would get a death sentence. So, and he stuck to this story the whole time. So it's completely different both ways. Um, so now I mentioned CrowdStrike, and they had another meaning, um, that it didn't have anything to do with the conspiracy theory. What it ended up being, CrowdStrike, um, it's when I was looking up under the Freedom of Information Act. Boy, my eyes are burning from my allergies. Um, What they found out was under Freedom of Information Act. I found out. I'm sorry. Here it that for the paternity case, um, he missed. Oh boy, it's the case of the Freedom of Information Act that I looked up here in Arkansas, and the judge ordered to Hunter Biden, and it was for him to appear in court for paternity case. Well, he missed the deadline to deliver financial information, and his lawyers were fed up with not being able to um, quantify that he owned um, what he owned. And the former girlfriend and her lawyers are basically saying that there was way more money that this kid had. And so um, basically, um, his lawyers ended up cutting the deal and made him pay the undisclosed settlement. But here's the catch to it. He wouldn't have to disclose 5 years worth of financial information. Now, what's interesting about that? Those are the 5 years, exact time frame Biden was with Burisma and all this money was flowing. Uh, so the settlement included a small, um, basically very small payout. And if additional information comes out proving that Hunter Biden had additional resources of income, then the case would go back to court. Now, what I have been able to find out, they did go back, and her lawyers were basically saying all of this was found, um, and this document was filed in the Arkansas court by the lawyers for Hunter Biden, for the baby mama. And it was a motion to intervene, and it was submitted and allowed evidence from the private investigation firm claiming to have the information on Hunter Biden financials. And clearly, this has not been verified but by the court, but an outside firm that alleges to have a bank account records for Maurice, that's the mama, and Hunter Biden. And they go to identify some of the receipts with Burisma. Well, that's when it was noticed, even by her lawyers, that something didn't make sense, and they wanted to look at the spreadsheets. And they said the tax forms weren't really cutting it because it was missing funds. So what they did is they got the holding sheets from Burisma, and what they found out was that uh, there was money that was put in, but then it was never really accounted for, and then it was missing. So The Burisma Holding Limited Finance Atlantic Council of Ukraine and associated rogue operatives from the U.S. State Department and CrowdStrike in Ukraine using private bank. So this is what they uncovered. So CrowdStrike pretty much, in fact, is a part of the list of payees from Burisma, and yet another U.S. based link that the prosecutors could use to find the money. And unlike Hunter Biden, CrowdStrike suddenly, um, the mention of CrowdStrike isn't such a conspiracy anymore. And so the money laundered, uh, the media not only failed to ask the right questions, they don't want to ask any questions. And I hope someone will take um, to asking senators and congressmen about this. They must investigate Hunter Biden. So basically, what had happened with ended up happening here in Arkansas is it's just being long and drawn out. I don't think it's really all of it's been settled. They wanted paternity tests, and they wanted blood from Hunter Biden. He did give some, but they don't trust it, the lawyers here, and neither does the judge here. So we got a good judge on this case. So what they did is they made him take it and take the blood, and then basically it was sent to a lab of the judge, and they had it tested with the babies. Yes, it is his baby. So now the case of the money. So they are claiming that he was claiming his net worth was about 8 million. Well, by the time they were done, they found it was more like 25 million. And so now they have to get it all back into court. Well, of course, his lawyers are stalling and stalling right now. So as soon as it gets back into court, um, they say there could be charges on not only Hunter Biden, but even Joe Biden and Jill Biden, because they wrote out um, affidavits for the court of what they knew. And of course, they've been caught lying to the judge or lying to the courts. So this is very interesting what's going on here with Hunter Biden, because they did also expose that there was some money laundering going on. So not only did a judge and um, the prosecutors here and this girl's lawyer um, find money laundering, but they're looking at more at uh, Joe and Jill Biden. They're not really looking at Hunter Biden here. And I thought that was odd. And, they're just not talking here. I've checked all my sources here, and they're like, you know what, mum's the word. And it's because I think they're keeping it so tight in that courtroom because they're going to stick it to them. So we don't know. We'll see what happens. So, um, so basically, this corrupt money laundering ring that is responsible for stealing billions upon billions, this is um, it's become a big money laundering in Ukraine. So, um, what we what we what I've been able to find out with some of my reporters over there to have them look into it is there are crowds of Democrats, and I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. They keep going over there to check on the war, and it seems like they are making donations or making payments to the Ukrainian government for some reason. And so, this is odd. This is real. Why would, let's say, Schumer and Nancy Pelosi have both been over there. Why would they donate more money, millions of dollars, to Ukraine? But it has to go through the bank, the government bank. And the government bank is the one that's got that. They take it for dirty money over to Cyprus. Cyprus cleans it, and then it goes on. So this has happened. And you know what gets me is I have watched it, and there's GOP that go over there. Um, Lindsey Graham is one, and Oliver North. um, Fashi, all these people that have been going over there for the last 8, 9 years. Why would they go? I mean, why would people like Schumer go over there? Why would Lindsey Graham even go over there right now? And now, get this, now we have Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham going over there. And I mentioned that this morning. Why would they go over there right now? It just makes no sense. We know Mitch McConnell. Now, this is just my opinion. Why would Mitch McConnell go over there unless maybe him and his wife have got some money through China that they wanted to put through these banks? And you're like, well, didn't they get shut down? They open them up as quick as they shut them down. They remember they had 42 um, different private banks, and with Hillary Clinton, if you shut down one of her foundations, she's on to the next, and that's kind of what they've been stating. That if one gets shut down, it's okay because the next is in line. And this has been mentioned in the open to reporters, but no one ever connected the dots. So does the military aid in Ukraine basically got halted under Trump, and the Democrats were upset because it stopped the money, it stopped any weapons from going over there. So there was a lull in payments. That's how I figure it's payments. From the time Trump went in till Biden went in. So what I'm wondering is this the money that's owed? Do we owe Ukraine money that they launder? Or what is going on? Because if you noticed, ever since they went in office, the Biden administration, they have done nothing but fork out money. And then if you go back and you look at some of like the infrastructure bill or the budget bill, the omnibus bill, it very neatly in it, in a little spot, there's money for Ukraine. You gotta really wonder what's going on over there. Um, so, um, let's see. So, um, the timelines to prove some of the what was going on, the timeline has a lot of coincidences with dates. Now, the impeachment witnesses and the Democrats said were very important on July 3rd. Colonel Min found about a hold on the military as of July 10th. Now, John Bolton was over there. Oh, good grief. July 18th, and announced from the Office of Management and Budget everything leading up to July 25th and this phone call. And if you want to realize it's all about political intrigue and not having anything to do with corruption, of course. And in general, this timeline, it would build um, that it build up what the truth is. And what it is we had one day with Trump on the phone, the next day, there all the money disappeared out of Burisma and had already gone on to Cyprus. Well, and I told you earlier today that William Barr had went over there, and I thought, hooray, they're going to figure out Cyprus, that all this money laundering. But I took it as lots of politicians. I never thought Burisma or Ukraine. So he went over and he went to the UK, then he went to Cyprus, and then he went to Europe. And I was like, whoa, that's not where I thought he was going to go. I figured it would be Sweden or something. No, he didn't go to Sweden. Uh, come to find out, he didn't really go to Europe. He actually went to the UK and was looking at the UK and some of the banks there that Cole Molinsky had got going. These are private banks. And the UK and MI6 was very surprised to find out they were doing it there too. So remember I said they're doing it all over the country. So um, so really from September 2014, $1.8 billion that disappeared. And I know I keep bringing that up. It, uh, it disappeared from the Colomus Keys Profit Bank. And this was December 16 when Ukraine finally says enough is enough, and they seized the private bank from Kolominsky for enriching himself on the IFM or IMF loans. And IF loans, what the IMF loans is, it's what did it happen is this is where additional $7 billion went. Uh, so is that our $8 billion that disappeared? Because all of a sudden they get an additional $7 billion. And this was in December. So what happened? That's when Donald Trump was elected. And so they no longer had Biden to worry about in October 2018. And the IMF reached what is called staff level agreement. And they began doing the money again to Ukraine. An agreement was subject to, and if I quote, IMF management approval and approval by the IMF executive board. Thank you, William. The International Monetary Fund. And so the conditions tied to this and what those conditions provide is they had to seize that the IMF said uh, it's about the court of reform and the rule of law of the oligarchic power structure. So as soon as they seized the money from the bank, when the IMF said, okay, we'll lend you more money, but now let's go to July 25th. The media wants to say the Trump phone call is basically what started all the downfall, that he secretly said something uh, after this phone call. Well, no, he didn't. None of that happened. What had happened is they just got caught in the middle of trying to pull all that money out. You're invisible. No, you're not invisible, Ed. I'm just yakking away. Is Hunter Biden still working at a job which he had? He is. I'll stop there because, pretty much we are looking at, they just caught him. No matter what Hunter Biden tried to do in Ukraine, and when all these banks got seized and they started seizing all the money out of it, they were finding 8 million here, 7 million over here. They found 25 million over here. They found 1.8 million over here. And so when they seized it all, they started realizing that it was all coming from the bank that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and Jill Biden and his brother were using. It was all in all their different names. So they were all a part of it. So is Hunter Biden still working at the job he had no qualification for? Actually, he's over in China in 3 different companies that he knows nothing about. And he's doing it with China now. And see, because he got caught in Ukraine. But the thing with Ukraine is when Zelensky got into power and Komolinsky basically got released, it seems like even up to 2019, they were still finding money laundering happening. That, if you think about it, that's only a few years ago. In fact, they even in 2020 might have even caught him again. And so who's doing this? Is it Zelensky or is it Kolominsky that's able to keep funneling this money for himself? Because he's a crook. I mean, he's he's buddy with the saw guys, the chainsaw gang. So anyway, hello to Edward. I wasn't ignoring you. I just haven't got to it yet. Ask Randy. I told her I would get towards the end and then I would answer a lot of questions. And I was worried about you tonight, Ed, because of that shooting. But I You're not in Tulsa that I know of. Ed's in Oklahoma, folks. So I was kind of worried, and I'm glad to see him here tonight. So basically, there was a big conference, and it was right about the time when we seen you remember when Zelensky had that big meeting with the press and all of that. Well, for some reason, there was a $5 billion loan that went through um, the private bank again, but it was in the name for Zelensky. Now, they were not able to prove anything on this. It was under a new assistance program, and so they're not really thinking that Zelensky was a part of it. And then they had like a standby arrangement, and that's an order of about $3.9 billion. Now, folks, this is all coming from us. All these millions here and billions over here and 1.8 billion and the 25, that is all money that's coming from us. So, I mean, this isn't coming from different countries. This is all the money that we have sent to Ukraine and their State Department or their embassy, and they're doing all of this. So, and then we did find out that the person with the embassy, they ended up being arrested because they were corrupted. So we have three corrupt presidents in a row. We have Hunter Biden that's corrupt, Joe Biden that's corrupt. Obama knew all about this. And then we got this Kolominsky that comes in, and he's a chainsaw thug that is paying the military by so it won't be caught because of who this military is. It's the Azov. It was paid under the table. So that was money taken out. It was the dirty money turned to clean money that went back to Chainsaw Dude. So does this make does this make sense? Well, Mary, I was fixing to ask, doesn't this piss you guys off that all of this was going on? And not only did Joe Biden know about it, but Obama knew about it too. This is what really irritated me, is when I found out that even Obama knew about it. Did they tell Trump? No. No, they let Trump walk into it. And I bet they were hoping that they could blame Russia, and all of this, because you remember what they did with the Alpha Bank? Okay, so almost the same thing happened with this Alpha Bank. It's a private bank. And so they were saying that Trump was putting money in this Alpha Bank that had connections to, because it was owned by the Russians. So you could see kind of where they were going with that. Well, Hillary even put it in her book. So here we go again. They were gonna take dirty money. They were gonna put it in a bank, and they were gonna try this Alpha Bank, and they were gonna try to blame Trump for money laundering. So, boy, um, so oh boy, um, so basically, we know they're dirty. And they hold the press conference, right? And there was this $5 billion loan the same day the phone call happened. Uh, they were saying they needed certain things from the administration, is what Trump said on his phone call. And uh, basically, a favor. I would like you to right now tweet, basically wanted him to tweet him. And that didn't pan out. Now, this is another phone call, folks, that we didn't know about. And I've been able to pull some little bit of info from my sources over there. There was a tweet that happened in between when Trump was on Twitter, and Zelensky had made it like a kind of like a coded message. And what it was um, that Ukraine's final peace. We have tens of thousands of people that are in need of food, and could you send them the money? Now, we never did find anything. When we looked on the spreadsheets for the State Department, it looks like Trump never sent it. And it was the same week that Trump cut them off. He decided, no, We're not sending them no more military, no more money, no more nothing. We sent them the blankets and we sent them the little bit of military equipment. Now they're done. And so my question was, did Congress know about this? Um, some did, some didn't. There is a few select, the top ones, that knew about this happening, and because they went over there, and there's video of it. There's um, Lindsey Graham and McCain and I believe it was Leahy and Dunbar that went over there, and they said they were going to come back and they were going to raise money to be able to send them a couple $1,000,000, and that because they seen the need for it. Now, see, they were so stupid, and I can't believe that they were um, praising the Ukrainians for standing up against Russia. And Trump was smart enough to say to Zelensky, "You got people around you that aren't good," and he knew about this. I didn't, I knew to a certain point. I started figuring it out when um, 2013, when I was seeing a change from it was just like neighbor versus neighbor, and then they all of a sudden they had tanks, they had uniforms, and these guys were fighting civilians, and it didn't make sense where they were getting all this money. And so I had thought always that we were just privately sending them a little bit of cash, but I didn't realize it was this much. And not only that, but the military aid that it keeps happening over and over and over again through the years. So technically, from 2008 until now, we're feeding them more money to fight Russia. How come? How come they didn't beat Russia then? And why didn't the United States help them out besides just sending them money? Why is it because now Putin has to be destroyed? uh, and it's not about just a tit for a tat on that. Now I know I mentioned the Minsk agreement to everybody, um, and basically what that was an agreement that was made between the old, not Zelensky, the presidents beforehand. Um, um, And what it was is Ukraine had agreed that these certain states had 90% Russians, which was um, basically, if you see what they've taken now, it was all of those states. And so now basically Putin's done. And I believe that's why he was wanting this meeting with Zelensky to tell him, "Hey, I'm done. This is what I wanted. Now, can we just end this war?" But see, what had happened is when he said it, then Biden decided to ramp up on sending what he's going to send, and so the whole negotiation is out, just off the table. So, um, let's see if I got anything else here. Um, Now get this. This is through Interpol, but not only Interpol, but um, pretty much the world banks are now saying that Ukraine's the biggest and most corrupt banks, and that at this point, that banks around the world, or even ones that are world banks, are connected. That there's a warning that not to take any of their money, um, or even the dirty banks. They don't know they're dirty, but they've even got it. And if you're caught, you'll be the banks and the branch, and like if it, let's say it was Bank of America, all of Bank of America would be shut down. That's how serious now that the World Bank, and it's basically the UN has stepped in and is doing a lot of this. So now, what do they do? Um, in 2016. Well, come to find out, Hunter Biden, like Ed was asking if there's anything else, they had been going over there and they're starting new companies doing the same thing. I don't know if they're money laundering, but they're making millions with China and the CCP. And it's basically with the same players, the same people he was in business with, except for not Devon Archer and not the few that have been whistleblowers. But now it's Whitey Bulger's nephew or son. And also, I believe it is, I want to say John Kerry's son. Um, it's either him or Romney's son that is in on this. And see, now we got politicians getting their kids into doing stuff over in China. How legit is this? When it was looked into because of what happened in Ukraine, when at the very end of Trump's presidency, he had an investigation go started on it. Garland stopped it. Garland stopped it. So we could have maybe found out if what they're doing over in China is the same thing they did over in Ukraine. Now, the one thing I do want to mention with with Ukraine. Now, we had seen Soros that was giving money to. Um, it ended up being Kolominsky that was getting these, not only their street protesters and their police trained, but they were also getting their own army together. And you ask, okay, who was the military and the group that Kolominsky with the chainsaws? That was the Azov army. And you know, just recently this week, this is what really upsets me. They changed their patches because too many people are connecting the dots and see that it's a neo-Nazi patch. So they've changed their patches this week to something else. So nobody, so what? So nobody knows, or is it because there's too many people figuring out who they really are? And they have been known for the most horriblest atrocities to to when they're at war. And what are we hearing from Ukraine? Because they do it to their own people too. If you're Russian, if you're Ukraine and you're in a Russian a village, they will um, they will kill you too, whether you're visiting or you live there. It doesn't matter. Russia's Russia. They do not like Russia. And hey, Sherry, yeah, I've missed you too. You should have called me. Um, and we, so I'm gonna cut it right there because tomorrow my the information I got is from an CIA agent, and he got a hold of me. He met me through my sources in northern um, Ukraine around Kiev. It wasn't my Eve girl. It was someone else because she went home and she's enjoying some home life with her family. And so she hooked me up with some people up around Kiev. And these guys were able to talk to a CIA agent that was over there most of the time with um, um, around Ukraine and around what was going on and what he was looking at. So I'm going to have his story on in the morning. Sherry, we started a new channel you might want to join. It's Investigator News Network. We have now, Sherry, you're going to love this stuff. Um, we moved, and I do a show with only weather and earthquakes and volcanoes and some lifestyle stories. I do that separate now than from with the news. It's a new thing we're doing, and it's getting a lot of hits and a lot of views. I think everybody likes the little human interest stories at the end. It's getting into hurricane season, so I want to keep track of hurricanes that way too. So, Sherry, it's on an hour before I do my news, so you might um, weather it money or hate. Yeah. Um, yeah, yeah, anyway, let me finish up with Sherry. So we're doing that in the mornings, and we're trying to. I know I'm going to lose lose investigator news too because of what they did on the main channel. Once I was hit hard with two, they took my channel. It wasn't long after. So this way I can tell everybody where we're at. And it's Investigator News Network. And we're making some changes like a week long special report on Ukraine. And I'm going to take it all the way up to what's going on now. Is there still corruption? I think so. Is it money laundering? It could be. I'm thinking the corruption is the military and what they're doing and not following the Minsk agreement. Uh, it's getting very fierce over there right now, but there's a lot of little things that's happened that people don't know about, stuff behind the scenes. So my last few days, that's what I'll get into. Um, Sherry, it's really good to see you. So you'll be able to see us tomorrow. Um, of course, I'll be on early for the weather. I think Sherry, you're going to love this weather thing. And then an hour later, we have another report. And Friday, um, I I told William if I didn't have him on tonight, I'd have him on another day. Friday night, if you guys have questions, either if you don't want to be on, submit it to my email and I can read them, or leave it in messages at Facebook, or you can leave it down below, or you can come in Friday night and ask me and William about all of this in Ukraine. Uh, and also, that way, William can help me out with some of the military stuff that they're getting lately, because I want to get up to date on exactly what they have. So, William will be here on Friday, Friday night for the. It's usually the corruption files, but it's going to be probably the last report for the week. Now, I did this because there is so much that is coming out in Ukraine right now, and a lot of um, they're basically the media is calling them out, and the media is now finding out some things with Zelensky, the things about their military, and so there's still a lot to be told. Even remember Manafort. There's even recent stuff coming out on Manafort uh, and Mueller of stuff that happened over in Ukraine. So uh, I this was a good show tonight, and I'm glad I got the report for this morning and today and finished it up to show you the money laundering. No more money to Ukraine. I I I, I just every time I hear that they're going to send more now, look, 9 million, 9 billion, 9 million, and they're going to send them in military. No, they don't need no more. Um, I just don't want my taxes wasted, and I'm furious that from 2008 till now we've been sending the money like we've been doing Iran. Can you imagine what's going on with Iran? If we were doing this in Ukraine, can you imagine all the secret money and the money funneling that maybe have happened through Iran? Because they said this is like a Iran Contra, and that got mentioned so many times by a lot of whistleblowers and witnesses out of Ukraine. And I was like, well, I didn't know they are they. Oh, they look too young to know about Iran Contra, but they are. Edward, it was good to see you tonight, and Miss Sherry, we did miss you. We missed you a lot. For those that didn't know, Karen's birthday. So she sent me a thing saying she's playing hooky, and I, I told her, well, you know what? I had to send it back saying you got a hickey. That's what I had to say back to her. Anyway, um, anyway, Share this series that we're doing with friends and family, because even Democrats need to see this, because they've got, remember the wolves in sheep clothing with the Fabian group. That's I feel the same thing with these Democrats. And who it really hurts in the United States, and that's their voters. The Democrat Party is lost. It's been hijacked, it's been taken over, and this is a liberal group, and they have dissolved the Democrat Party. It's time for the Democrat Party to either join up with us or find a really good independent to vote for. But don't vote for the Democrats. They have been wanting to control and take over the United States since 1868. So, with that, um, yeah, I think I was busy. There was something really weird going on, and I think I told Mary to maybe. Well, if you don't call me, call Mary. Either one of us. I'd have you call William, but I don't think William is going to let me give you his number. Um, but either me or Mary. If I don't get back to you within a day, uh, call Mary or message Mary or message me again, because you wouldn't believe the list. Um, it's like call this person, this person, this person, and it says, and like the 10th down, call your sister. So believe me, Sherry, I'm not blowing you off. I even do this to my sisters. Um, and you wouldn't, even my brother, and I'm like, oh, I didn't get to him today. And so I put him further down the list. And next thing I know, it's 2, 3 days later. And my sister calls me and she said, boy, you're busy. So, uh, anyway, um, we will see everyone in the morning. So we will be on 3 platforms. We'll be on Investigator News 2, and we will be on Investigator News Network. So if you're watching for Investigator News, if you're watching on number 2, please go to Investigator News Network and add yourself. Because if we lose this one, and it's probably going to happen real soon, we at least everybody knows where we're at. And I'm trying to revamp the shows and make them a lot better. So yes, please subscribe and follow if you're over there in Facebook. Hit the bell. Definitely hit the bell. Our bells are. Why is our bell stick, Mary? I got one over here. Let's see, right here. You guys can hear my little bell. Ring that bell. I would put it over here and ring it for you guys and drive you nuts with it. Um, but get that bell, smash the bell. Take it apart and throw it at YouTube saying, add me, let me know. So like and subscribe, that thumbs up, and send a heart or two sometimes. I like those hearts. So with that, everyone, we will see you all tomorrow morning, and have a wonderful evening. And tomorrow morning, it'll be another show, another report. Like I said, it's going to be a gentleman that is willing to give me a lot of info about Ukraine. So with that, have a great Wednesday night, and we'll see you tomorrow.